Attending a conference around educational technology or technology in general is a great way to meet like-minded people, learn new things, see what's happening in the field, have great conversations, make great connections, and have a lot of fun. Well, I just recently came back from DevLearn 2024, the 20th anniversary of that conference, and I had a great time and got a lot of value out of that conference. And I thought I would make this video recapping some of my experiences, some of the decisions I made at the conference, why I decided to do certain things, and the benefits I got from attending. You know, a conference can be very intimidating if you've never gone to one before, or even if you've gone to many before. It's really important to give thought to how you're going to get the most from a conference and some of the things you can do. Well, DevLearn 2024 was a fantastic conference, and I really had a great time, got a lot of value out of it, and I wanted to share some of that with you so that when you attend a conference, you can take some of the lessons that I've learned attending and maybe apply it to your own conference experience. I was invited down to the DevLearn conference in Las Vegas by iSpring Solutions. They invited me to speak at their booth on the expo floor, and I was able to give 2 presentations during my time there. I did one on proven practices within learning and development, and another one on leadership within learning and development. And I was able to present those to an audience at the iSpring booth, as well as join other presenters that were giving other thought leadership ideas around learning and development at that booth. Now, the way that a conference works is there'll be a large floor dedicated to an expo. And a lot of different vendors will set up in that expo area so that they can show people the different solutions that they have, the different products they have. I saw some amazing things, and you're going to see a number of videos come out of that conference. But the iSpring Solutions booth was one of the largest booths there. It was fantastic because customers could come in and they could see exactly how wonderful iSpring is, and they could listen to a number of us presenters give different speeches and talks about the different aspects of learning and development and some ideas and thought leadership around that. It was a great opportunity. And in addition to that, I was able to spend a couple days at the conference doing other things. So let's do a day-by-day, blow-by-blow of what happened at the conference, the things that I did, some of the things I saw, and a lot of this, again, will be teaser for some other videos that are definitely going to be coming out where I deep dive into some of the things that I saw and some of the ideas that were generated. My first tip for anybody going to a conference is plan ahead. Not just your hotel and your meals and all that type of thing. You want to plan the actual conference itself ahead of time. You want to go into the conference website or the conference app. These days, almost every conference has an app. And you want to download that in advance. You want to fill out your profile with all of your information, your social media links, the About You page, a picture of yourself. Because as you meet other people at the conference, you can scan and exchange information through that app. So learn how to do that and make sure that you've populated the app with the About You page. Then you want to go in, and every conference will have a number of tracks. So for example, at DevLearn, there was an AI in learning and development track, there was leadership in learning and development track, there was a number of different tracks. And in each of those tracks were in multiple sessions. So you could go to the conference and just focus on one area, or you could go to the conference and sample from multiple areas. But it's important to plan that in advance. Through the app, and every conference will have this these days, you'll be able to create a personalized agenda. They'll have some pre-conference sessions if you arrive early that you can sign up for. Those sometimes are very focused or workshop oriented. They can be very useful. And then what will happen is on the first day of the conference, there'll be a keynote speaker. A lot of conferences will start with a breakfast sponsored by someone, and you'll have a breakfast or a coffee. Then you'll go to a keynote session to start the conference off. And then the sessions will begin. And those sessions will be on the track, so you have a menu of different sessions that you want to select from. If you've done your work in advance, you won't be scrambling to find where to go next. You'll be able to go through and you'll be able to see what your plan is and go to the right room for the right session. Now, here's a little bit of a secret as well. I usually have my main session that I like to go to, and I have a second session that I might like to go to. And the reason for that is that if I go into the first session and it's either full or I'm not really vibing with what's going on, I can exit that session and join another session. So don't feel like you're committed to a session just because you sat down. It may be something where you want to be able to have the flexibility to go to a session that maybe is more aligned to what you want to do. But that's sort of a conference hack. So you'll have your coffee in the morning, your keynote speaker, and sessions will begin. There'll also usually be a lunch and a coffee, again, sponsored lunches and coffees. So you'll have breaks in between where you can network and you can do different types of connecting with other people. Maybe friends that you know that are also going to the conference, or you could use that time to make new friends. I would also recommend that if you go and grab a lunch, you sit at a table with an empty chair with people that you don't know. And you just say, is this chair available? You sit down, you introduce yourself. You'd be surprised some of the great conversations that you can have. And then what will happen is some conferences will have an event in the evening, sort of a social or a get-together. Find out what that is and you can attend that event. It's going to depend on the size of the conference, but a lot of conferences will either have one big event, or sometimes it's just a VIP event, or sometimes there's multiple events depending again on the size of the conference. So check for those evening events, the ones that are applicable to you. And then the next day, you'll have another opening keynote, and then you'll have a number of sessions. And then usually that will continue throughout the conference. And on the final day of the conference, they'll have sessions in the morning and they'll usually have a closing keynote. So that's kind of the structure of a typical conference. There's a few things that are added in there. Most conferences will also have an expo floor, where you have a lot of different vendors and sponsors that are showing some of the latest and greatest technology. I get a lot of value from the expo floor, and it's very important, in my opinion, to attend that expo floor. Maybe have, one of the session blocks doesn't really have anything for you, or maybe you just want to make a point of making sure you get to the expo. It's pretty important because that's where you're going to see a lot of the up and coming technologies. You'll be able to connect with people that are producing technologies that you use. It's a super valuable aspect to the conference. So now that you understand a very basic conference structure and the need to plan ahead, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I did at DevLearn 2024 and how I navigated that. After I'd prepared myself well in advance to attend the conference, I went down to the conference the day before the official start of the conference. I went down on Tuesday. Now, there were a number of pre-conference events occurring on the Tuesday, but I didn't attend any of those. What I did is I flew down fairly early on the Tuesday so that I could be on site before the conference started officially on the Wednesday. And I also made sure that I was there so that I could pre-register for the conference. Most conferences will allow you to pick up your badge for the conference and all of the information for the conference before the actual conference starts. They'll have a registration desk open the day before, sometimes even 2 days before the conference. You'll want to check. By getting my registration packet and everything sorted out before the start of the conference, I could then read any of the papers that they handed out. I could make sure that I populated my app with the sessions that I wanted to attend, and I could walk the conference floor to understand where some of the rooms were. So I knew where the main ballroom was, I knew where the expo was going to be, I knew where the sessions were going to be held. I got familiar with the place that I was, in my case Las Vegas, and I figured out a pathway between my hotel, the Luxor, and the conference floor, which was the MGM conference floor. Now in my case, that was about a 20-25 minute walk. I could have taken an Uber, I could have taken, there's a shuttle, and there's actually even a tram. I don't mind walking, so I just followed the slot machines. That's my Vegas joke. So what I did by getting there a day early is I was in really good shape, and I was going to wake up early on location, ready to go. And I always fly in a little bit early if I can for any conference that I attend so that I can walk through and get the registration done. So I got to Las Vegas. It was very interesting. I'm not much of a Vegas person. I'm not going to play slot machines and such or attend any shows, but I did enjoy getting there. It was really nice, great weather. It was a lot of fun. I got to the Luxor Hotel. The hotel itself, I did some preview of the hotel and looked at some reviews online. I've seen some pretty negative reviews of the Luxor, but I will say I had a great time at the Luxor. The room was clean. It's an older hotel now. It's been around for a while, but the room was clean. It was a nice room. I stayed in the pyramid itself. I had a really great time. So I really liked that. I was able to get everything set up. I got some dinner, brought it to my room after I'd registered at the conference, sat down, had my dinner, and planned out my day ahead. On my second day in Vegas was the first day of the conference, and that's the day that I was going to be presenting at the iSpring booth. So I went to the expo floor. I had a special pass that allowed me to go into the expo floor before it was open. I met everybody from iSpring, fantastic people. It was great. I think that's actually my highlight of the conference, is I got to meet people that I've only ever seen through the internet that are really great people. I really like iSpring solutions, and I was able to meet with them, and I was able to get to the area where I was going to be speaking, make sure that the audio visual equipment was working, get prepared to give my presentation. Now, as a result of that, I did not attend the opening keynote for the conference. And sometimes that's the decision you have to make. You can't be in two places at once. And in this case, I was at the iSpring booth preparing for my presentation. That was the best use of my time. So I was all excited. I was able to give my first presentation in the morning. I was able to talk a lot about proven strategies that we could use to have better outcomes for learning and design. And again, my key highlight there was I got to meet the iSpring people. Then, because I was already on the expo floor, I started to walk the expo. I went up and down the corridors looking at some of the different vendors, and there was two groups of vendors for me. Vendors that I'd never heard about or I'd only heard a little bit about, and I wanted to see what they had to offer. And then there were vendors that I've been working with their products for a long time, or maybe they even sponsored a video before, and I got to meet with them and I got to say, hey, it's great to see you in person. And that was a lot of fun as well. I made a point for those vendors that I'd had some sort of relationship with in the past to send a note to them, letting them know that I would also be at the conference, and say, I can't wait, I'm excited to drop by your booth and see what's going on. And there were a couple of vendors that I really enjoyed. So one of the new vendors that I saw was the book club vendor, and they were really nice. They were giving everybody a free book. If you just went in, they had like a little bookstore there, you filled out some stuff on social media, and then they gave you a book to help promote reading and learning when it comes to learning and development. And then Camtasia was there. That's a software program that I use all the time to do screen recordings and do editing and such. Genially was there, which is, I have some videos here on the channel. That's a product that I like to use to create some visuals. And Doodly was there, which is a company that I've worked with their product before. They haven't been a sponsor on the video, except for Genially, none of them has been a sponsor on the video. And I spent quite a bit of time at the iSpring's booth because I really wanted to help and talk to customers and people that were thinking about using iSpring, because I'm a big believer in that product. And then I saw some vendors there that were amazing. I'd never heard of them before. There was a company there called Veed, and there was a company there called Revolution Lightboards. And I had looked at the expo list before I attended the conference. Again, prepare in advance and you get more out of it. And I wanted to specifically see Revolution Lightboards because it's something I'm very interested in working with. And so they had a really nice setup there. So I spent some time there, and they actually invited me to come back the next morning before the expo opened to play around with some of their products. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to do a whole video on them. It's an absolutely amazing product that they have. And but I got to play around with it a little bit on the first day, and on day two I got to play around with their product a lot. And then I went back, I had lunch and I walked around a little bit, And then I had a chance to go back to the iSpring booth and talk about leadership in learning and development. And that was a great presentation as well. Again, hearing about spending some time at the iSpring booth, spending some time talking to people that were either experienced with iSpring or just starting to look at iSpring. That was a fantastic experience. I really enjoyed that first day, really confining myself mostly to the expo floor. For my third day in Vegas, it was the second day of the conference, I was able to go to the expo floor early before it opened, and I was able to go to Revolution Lightboards and use the big solution that they had brought to the convention for lightboard work. It's an incredible setup that they have. They've created this one button solution where you can start training people using a light board, bringing in different objects. It's very interesting, and I'll be creating a completely separate dedicated video just on this solution. But the day before, I talked about some things that I would like to try using their solution. So they invited me to come in early. I came in early and I got about half an hour to 45 minutes to play around and test things out. The results were amazing, and I'm excited to share those with you in a completely dedicated video. But of course, having that opportunity meant that I did miss the keynote for the second day, but that's okay because I had the opportunity to really experiment with a piece of equipment that I'm very interested in, and that's light boards. So it's something I'm interested in. This particular setup is pretty amazing. Stay tuned for the video on that. After I'd played around with that a little bit, I then did go to a book signing. So although I wasn't able to get her keynote, Kara Swisher was there signing her new book. So I was able to get the new book from her signed, and I thought that was really interesting. I really like her writing, so I'm excited to read that new book. And then I spent a little bit more time on the expo floor, meeting some different vendors, talking again with some different vendors. And then one of the other presenters from iSpring, Elena, was there, and her book is just about to be released, but her pre-copies came out and I was able to get one signed. So I'll put links to all these books down below as well, but this one's really interesting because it's on measurement and evaluation, which is a very important topic in learning and design and learning and development, and therefore I really am excited, and her presentation was fantastic, so I'm really excited to read that book as well. And I'm going to share my thoughts on that book on LinkedIn as well as in a different video on learning and design books, so learning and development books. So that was great. Some books were involved there. I went around the expo floor, and then I went to the VEED booth the day before I'd been there. And the second day, I went back to that booth, and they created an AI avatar of myself. So I went into their booth. It was a soundproof booth. I was able to read a script, and then they used that script to generate a an AI avatar of myself that I could then put a script in written form, and it would generate a video of me reading out that script. It was a pretty interesting result. What do you think of it?
AI avatars are revolutionizing how we learn by offering a more personalized, interactive, and accessible experience. These avatars, powered by artificial intelligence, can simulate human instructors, tailoring lessons to meet the needs of each learner.
So as you can see, it's not 100% perfect, but I was still very impressed with it, and I think it could be something that will evolve or could be used to augment some additional material that I might be developing. Then I spent some time going to some other areas of the expo, meeting up with people, having conversations, having discussions about learning and development, and also visiting some of the other sponsors as well, just to see what they were up to. I saw the Articulate Zone, I went to the ELB Zone, so there was different places in the expo itself where there were presentations set up, where there were activities set up. So I basically walked the floor and explored various aspects of the conference. At the end of the day, it was time to go back to my hotel room. I had a meal and I did some reading, and I did some recapping of the things that I learned at the expo to make sure that I captured everything that I wanted to and got ready for the next day. So here I am on the last day of the expo, the third day of the expo, the Friday. I was flying home that evening around 7 p.m. So one of the tricks I also have whenever I go to a conference is always try to have a good lag time between when the conference ends and when you fly out. So the conference itself ended at about 12:31 p.m. There was a final keynote, and I spent the morning of the conference. I went for coffee early in the morning, and then I went to a number of sessions. I went to a session on social media in learning and development. I went to a session on Power Automate in learning and development, and I went to a session on Power BI. So using Power BI to do capturing information, again, on learning and development. The conference is on a theme, and all of the sessions I had were on that theme. So it was really interesting to sit in those sessions, to listen to ideas about how we could use those things in learning and development, and to really understand how other people maybe are using them. So that was great. It was really the first time in the entire 3 days that I spent a lot of time in sessions. In hindsight, maybe I could have spent a little bit of time on day 1 and 2 in sessions, but I really wanted to focus on meeting new people, and I wanted to specifically focus on meeting some of the vendors at the expo and some of the other attendees at the expo. And really, I wanted to, eavesdrop on conversations about how people were using iSpring so that I could create better videos for you on that subject. So on the third day, it was a little bit more, I just wanted to do sessions, and I was able to see the final keynote, which was about artificial intelligence and its use in the future, specifically around learning and development and STEM. So I thought that was absolutely fantastic as well. And that final keynote ended at around 12:30, which gave me plenty of time to, gather my thoughts, gather all the stuff that I had, make sure I was all packed up, and I was able to leave for the airport around 3 and fly home. This particular conference, I was really there for the purpose of presenting at the conference, and therefore my main focus really was on that first day, just doing my presentations, making sure I was ready for those presentations, and being in the area where I was going to do my presentations. The second day, my main focus was to actually have an opportunity to work with some technologies, get some hands-on, and then in the third day to attend some sessions and a keynote. But the key here is that every conference will have an entire buffet of different things you can do. For some people, all they want to do is attend session after session after session. For some people, they just want to attend sessions in the morning, make contacts in the afternoon, or the reverse of that. The point with any conference that you go to is to plan ahead and look at what's available to you and take advantage of those things. You will never be able to do all of the things that a conference has to offer. You won't be able to be in 7 places at once. So another strategy that I often use when it comes to conferences is to make sure that when you go there, you're making a lot of contacts. You're meeting people, you've filled out the About Me section on the app, you're exchanging information with people so that you can then follow up with them and go deeper into some of the things that are important to you, to motivate you and have you work on the conference. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video on how I navigated this particular conference. Let me know down below what are some of your favorite tips and tricks if you've attended any conferences. What conferences are you planning on attending in the future? Why are you attending them? Will that be something that you're hoping that you and I can meet up at? So maybe we'll have an opportunity to meet each other live. I'd love to see you guys at a conference. I tend to go to educational conferences or technology conferences, but let me know which are your favorite conferences down below. Maybe there's one there that I haven't heard of that I could attend, and maybe we'll have a chance to have a coffee together. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Stay tuned for the videos that I have on some of the cool things that I got out of this conference. I have a lot to share with you because of the time that I spent at this conference.